Welcome into another special edition of Sport Ball. I'm your boy Sam. With me, as always, are two out of the top, I don't know, maybe the top 100 most cherished people in my life.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah. And it is Seth and Kyle. Was that too high praise for you guys?
More than I expected, to be honest.
Hard to keep from rushing.
This is an exciting pod, I think. We're recording this on Thursday, 8:20 Central Standard Time. So we wanted to get this out before the playoffs start in earnest, post-playing games. So the playoff round one's going to start Saturday. We're just coming off the high of Lakers Warriors last night, which I think we all enjoyed immensely.
Palooza.
Yeah.
Really lived up to the hype.
Adam Silver is somewhere in a bath just full of money right now after that game. So that was great. We have the 2 7 seeds locked up. We don't know the 2 8 seeds for this podcast. One of the playing games is happening right now, but I think we can kind of finagle our way around it and still preview the first round. So
well, Washington's up by 19 right now in the third quarter. So looking good for them.
Yeah.
Which is also good for our bet.
Pacers shooting a cool 35% from the field.
We must remind the listeners that
it happens.
That we had a bet who would go farther in the playoffs, the Pacers or the Celtics. And it's turned into quite the rock fight because the Celtics had to win a play-in game to even get in, and will probably get destroyed by the Nets in the first round, and the Pacers may not even make the playoffs. So was it as bad as the Cardinals Buccaneers? No, but it was close.
Sam, were you in on that bet as well, or was it just Kyle and I?
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
I mean, the Pacers had a lot of injuries in college.
A ton of injuries, yeah.
And so did the Celtics. So it would have been kind of more exciting if they had both been healthy.
Exactly.
Yeah. That being said, it's embarrassing.
I'd make the bet again.
Right now, I'll make it. All right. So I want to preview every matchup in the first round. You guys ready?
One ready.
I went in order of what was most interesting to me, which I hope will be most interesting to our listeners, aka Matt. Speaking of
Bucks Pacers, they're still on my mind. Bucks first.
No. Speaking of, Matt told us, our one listener today, that he explained to someone at his work how the playing games work.
My God.
And that is the sport ball effect, folks. Get educated, all right? All right, so I actually started off with Denver versus Portland. You could argue if that's the most exciting one or not, but I think it'll be a close series.
I guess I don't know why I was only considering the East games. I figured we'd start in the East for some reason. So I
kind of jumped around conferences. I mean, this is the most betting-wise. This is the most even one. Denver is favored at -105, but it's basically even money both ways. So we get Jokic versus Dame, which is very exciting always. I just feel like both of these teams exclusively play 7-game series. So that's what I'm expecting in this one. It would have been a lot more fun if Jamal Murray was playing, right, guys? But unfortunately, we just get the Jokic and Porter show. So what are you guys looking for in this matchup? What are you looking forward to watching, and who do you think is going to win?
I think on the one hand, obviously we wish that Jamal was in the playoffs, but this matchup in particular, I think if he was playing, we would all be picking Denver. So it might be a little bit more evenly matched now that Jamal is out.
That's a good point.
I think ultimately I'm going to lean towards going with the MVP. And I feel like as much as I love Dame, and if I was just like rooting for who I wanted to win, it would be Portland. They're one of my favorite teams. And I love the way Dame plays, and I just want them to succeed after really like putting this team together and sticking with it. And it seems like year after year, they have different injuries and things that set them back, but just picking against Jokic is going to be, I think, too tough a pill to swallow. And I think it'll be interesting to see if Michael Porter Jr.'s level of play can be sustained throughout the playoffs. And if he is going to be that like replacement for Jamal Murray that he's been since he went out with the injury. Because honestly, he's been just as good, if not better, than Jamal was as a second option for Jokic. So,
But more consistent, I feel
Right.
like.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, Portland is going to have a lot of trouble covering Michael, I think, because they don't really have a big wing that can really guard him. I mean, Robert, maybe he
Covington,
could just shoot
yeah.
over Robert. Yeah. So I'm really excited to see how this is almost like Porter's first playoffs, right? You know, first playoffs is a real 36-minute, 40-minute player. So I'm excited to see how he takes that role in the playoffs.
I mean, obviously, I'm picking Denver right in the series,
Obviously.
but it's really interesting when I think about like playoff matchups. I like to think about which team has the best player on the court, and obviously it's Jokic, right? But before this year, if they were going to be matched up, how close would it have been between saying Dame and Jokic? You know, which one of them would have been the best players on the court during this matchup? No response. No one has any idea.
I think
I think we all would have said Jokic still, but it would have been closer, I guess.
I mean,
And
Dame is
certainly-
still like the 8th best player in the league, and Jokic is like the 4th, right? So I mean,
yeah, and certainly in any given game, Damian could make a bigger impact or be the best player on the floor on a given day. But
yeah. And I'm going to take Denver as well. I think I might take Denver in 7 in our playoff picks, just because it just seems like both these teams always play to a game 7, but it could be that Denver beats them more handedly. One thing I'm interested to see is Nurkic the type of player that can handle Jokic for long stretches by himself without doubling? I think
No one
no.
can handle Jokic without doubling him.
AD can, but other than that, probably not.
Not really.
it depends on your definition of a handle, right? No one can shut him down, but I also don't think it's not any better to double him because he's such a good passer. They're going to get a better shot than they would have already. So
It's worse to double him. That's why I'm wondering if that's how Portland can stay in the series, because Nurkic is at least a solid positional defender.
And he's big enough where Jokic can't muscle him as much in the post. I'd try it,
Yeah, I think they will at times. And I don't even know. There's no playing Enos in this series, right? Unless you match his minutes with JaVale. So if JaVale doesn't end up playing.
The Jokic-JaVale minutes on court together at the end of the season were actually really productive minutes. And it was strange to watch.
It kind of makes sense, though, because like AD can play with a center. And it's like, if your center can score from anywhere, then you can have a rim runner, especially if your center can pass and run the pick and roll, right?
Right. Yeah. I wonder if they used that at all after what was like the last 5 games. They had quite a few stints with it.
I wonder.
And it was really successful. Yeah.
If the Lakers are going Drummond, AD, LeBron, maybe they roll it out for that.
Such a dumb lineup. Drummond shouldn't see the court in the playoffs.
Someone blind him, please. Get Draymond to poke him in the eye.
Neither should Harold. We'll
put a
get to that,
blindfold on him. It's kind of interesting though, because all the comparisons that we hear about Jokic are like Dirk Nowitzki. I guess people say Sabonis, who's a center, there was the whole debate with the All NBA voting of whether Jokic and Embiid should really have eligibility at forward. But if he's playing with JaVale, then obviously he's in a forward kind of role. And reminds me of like the 2011 Mavs where they'd have Nowitzki and Tyson Chandler. And Nowitzki's not a great defender, not a rim protector really at all. So Chandler was fulfilling that role. And he's better, more solid than JaVale is, but JaVale could kind of do that same kind of role, like yet let Jokic focus on offense stuff and be in the right position on defense, but have someone else who can protect the rim. Maybe it's not the worst idea.
I don't understand why everyone, when there was this big hullabaloo about Embiid and Jokic being listed as forwards, everyone was saying,
it.
No, I understand it. I'm saying I felt like everyone slotted in Joel in the forward instead of Jokic. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Jokic has a way better case for forward than Joel does. Did they have a qualm about putting Jokic as a first team forward instead of center? Like, I don't understand that, you know? If I were to fit them both on the first team, I would put Joel at center.
Yeah, I think it's just like, if they're both only eligible at center, then we would have Jokic be there. And so he's like the default first team. So you just have him in that slot. And then it's like trying to fit Embiid on afterwards. But I agree with you. Like, I don't know. I think they both should have just only had center, and Embiid in particular, like, never ever plays forward. So that makes no sense. Like, you might as well have Chris Paul with center eligibility then. But
it was funny too, because I said on this podcast, I was like, it's a shame I can't get Joel on the first team. And then he actually made it possible. And I was like, I don't really like it, actually. Now that I look at it. All right. You guys want to hit the next one? Let's go Knicks Hawks. This one is really a toss-up for me. I don't know how you guys feel. And the books have it as a toss-up as well. The Knicks are slight favorites at -105. I think where I'm at, and I assume where we're all at, is that the Hawks have more talent, but I don't know. I kind of just trust the Knicks more, coaching, defensive intensity, toughness. Those all favor the Knicks in my mind, and the talent favors the Hawks. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Trae Young's first playoffs, which will be exciting to see. Is DeAndre Hunter back to 100%? That's another thing we'll be looking for. So, Kyle, what are you excited to see in this matchup?
Honestly, I'm excited to see what Derrick Rose does in the playoffs again. I think he's really the X factor for the Knicks in this matchup. If he's coming off the bench, averaging 20 points a game, with the way the rest of the core Knicks are playing, it's going to be tough for Atlanta. But in those games where Rose struggles, I feel like, we already know the Hawks have enough firepower to kind of just shoot anyone out of a game. So this one is really a toss-up. I have no clue who I'm going to pick. I'm leaning towards the Hawks right now. I'm going to err on the number of shooters that they have over the kind of isolated 2-3 scores that the Knicks really need to perform extremely well and to pull out a victory in the series.
Yeah, there's a couple things that make me hesitant to pick the Hawks, which is where I was initially leaning. One is they can't really guard Randall. He's gone off against him every time this season that they've played, and it's like, who do you throw at him? Do you have John on him? He's good. I feel like he wins that matchup. Do you have Clint Capella on him? Then he can just get by him. I feel maybe DeAndre Hunter is the best bet, but it just doesn't seem like he's 100% back yet from that injury. So that would worry me for picking the Hawks. The other thing is Trae Young's defense, which is going to get a highlighter all over it in the playoffs when they try to put him in every pick and roll, right? But on the other hand, who on the Knicks really can exploit that, right? Maybe
right.
Rose, like you said, Kyle.
Yeah, it's Rose. It's not going to be Alfred Payton, who he's going to match up with to start the game. So
maybe RJ can get some switches onto him, and RJ and Randall. Maybe they get switches onto him, but it might be Derrick coming off the bench that does most of the damage. So that might not be as big a factor, but I am interested to see how he holds up on the defensive end in the playoffs too.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards picking the Knicks, which I feel like is a little bit of a contrarian because I think the Hawks on paper have more talent. Certainly before the season, we would have said that. I like the Hawks. I like John Collins and DeAndre Hunter in particular. And what Clint has done this year has been really impressive, but I'm just not a big Trae Young guy. And I think it's that question that we ask every year, like, how well does his game translate to the postseason? And is he going to be hunted on defense and all that? I just really, I don't know. I think there's this narrative like, oh, props to the Knicks, a scrappy team. they made it solidly into the playoffs, but now they're really gonna, like, when rubber hits the road, they're just not gonna have the horsepower to, follow through and get a victory. But I don't know. I kind of feel like this could be a winnable matchup for them, and they'll continue doing what they've been doing all season, and Tibbs will have a really good coaching plan. And yeah, Randall has been unstoppable. So I don't know. I kind of like their chances.
I mean, would it be wild to say that Randall was better than Trae Young this year? I mean,
No,
he
probably
was.
not.
So, do the Knicks have the best player in the series?
Yeah.
I feel like we're not talking about it that way, but that might be the case. I think I'm going to pick the Knicks in 7 because if it does come down to game 7, I'm just not sure I trust Trae and the Young Hawks to win a game on the road.
Trae and the Young Hawks.
It's my favorite band. But I wouldn't be surprised if either team wins this matchup. It's going to be very interesting. It's nice to have these two teams in, right? It's not the same old Pacers and fucking Raptors and shit, right? It's some new blood.
What'll really be surprising is when the Knicks go further than the Nets in the playoffs. Who would have expected that?
Oh, we'll get to your precious Celtics matchup because it's last on the list of most interesting matchups. All right, next I want to talk about Suns Lakers. Lakers are favored -150 on FanDuel right now. Shout out FanDuel, sponsor us, please. Thank you.
No free ads, though.
How is this matchup less interesting than Knicks Hawks?
It was more of like interest mixed with the closeness of the matchup.
You don't think this matchup's gonna be close?
No.
No, I don't.
Wow, that's disrespectful.
I mean, not. It's not gonna be a sweep. Listen, this is the order I did it in. I was at the airport. Flight was about to leave. I said, "Let me get this down first." The lady said, "Sir, we're boarding." I said, "Just give me a separate plane for myself," and that's how it went. So, coming off of that all-timer game against the Warriors, the Lakers are the 7th seed now. This is a terrible matchup for the Suns, unfortunately, for us Chris Paul lovers. I mean, you have DeAndre Ayton and then what, right? To throw at the Lakers front court. Dario Saric coming off the bench, Jay Crowder. So I just don't see this going well for the Suns. I think they'll win a couple of games, though. I don't think the Suns will get swept by anyone, but I would have preferred the Suns to play someone other than the Lakers, at least get for the first round, but I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, if AD is fully healthy and LeBron's eye is back to itself and he's not talking about for the umpteenth time that he saw 3 rims,
That was
then
funny.
I think they're going to be fine. He said it 18 times in a matter of 2 interviews.
I only heard the first time, so it was funny.
It's getting very old. Either way, it's just, I don't know who Phoenix has to throw at either one of them to stop anything. And then, you still got to worry about Schroeder. Chris Paul will lock him down, though, so it's okay.
Schroeder was fucking ass cheeks in that Warriors game, though.
I
wonder if he's still recovering from the coronavirus, though,
Probably.
I mean, Caruso was just a way better option for them in that game, which was interesting.
Defensively, definitely.
I was reading a Kevin Pelton piece today about how this year it's unprecedented that neither of the top 2 seeds in the West are favored to win the conference, and that both the Lakers and the Clippers have better odds to make it.
I was talking about in the last pod, right? It's like,
yeah,
we don't believe in the Jazz and Suns. They're not even the favorites, even though they're 1 and 2 seed.
Well, I believe in them, and
so you're picking the Suns in this series? I already know you're not, because you said you're going to pick the Lakers in every series.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick the Lakers as a reverse psychology kind of thing, but I think it'll go to 7 or 6 or 7, and I think I'm definitely picking the Jazz to move deep into the playoffs. But we'll get to them later.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. I think like this whole season, everyone's been saying, well, if LeBron and AD are healthy, like, well, if they're at full strength, like, yeah, I mean, I don't think they really are. That we're at that point right now. they didn't look that great against the Warriors. They looked pretty good. And
They looked pretty great in the second half. First half, they were complete ass.
Right. I think Ayton is better defensively than most people give him credit for. Doesn't
definitely.
mean he's going to lock down Anthony Davis, but I don't think it's like they're completely screwed. And I think they have a handful of people, Jay Crowder, Mikal Bridges, to throw at LeBron. And then they have one of the best point guards and especially clutch performers in the game. So I don't know. I don't think they're like overmatched. And I didn't even mention Devin Booker. So I don't think it's like a
No, I don't either.
like
Like
a
I said, it's not gonna
one-sided
sweep.
it's
No.
like a one-sided matchup. I think it's like two of probably the top 4 teams in the NBA.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going 6 or 7 as well. I feel like everyone's talking like the Lakers will roll over them. Like I said, it is a pretty bad matchup for the Suns, but the Suns aren't going down quietly against anyone. So it will be interesting to see how Aiden plays in his first playoffs. That's another thing I'm looking forward to. He's such a weird player to figure out. I like him a lot for some reason, but I just don't know what his calling card is. You know, maybe it's just going to be defense.
It might just be.
Yeah. On offense, I'm just not sure what he is.
He doesn't need to score though on offense with the people around him. So
No, you're right. You're right. So that's going to be a fun matchup. I'm excited for that. How many times are they going to mention that Chris Paul and LeBron James are friends on the broadcast, do you think?
how many times do they bring up the banana boat?
I'm a little worried about LeBron. I don't know. I was telling Seth, I can't even believe I said this out loud. Maybe it was just to try to reverse jinx it, but I was like, I'm getting mildly worried that LeBron's ankle injury, he'll just never be the same again, which he said he wasn't going to be, but like it's like a JV version of Kobe's Achilles almost, because definitely in the first half, he didn't have any explosiveness. He didn't really do anything explosive in the second half either. He just kind of, played a little more chess, but I don't know. He just hasn't looked the same since coming back, and maybe it takes an off season to get better, or maybe this is just a next phase of his career. I don't know.
I don't know either. It's going to be interesting. I said that it's not going to be a close matchup, but I think it goes probably 6 games too.
Yeah.
So
I'm picking Lakers in 6 in that one, I think. All right. We're finally going to get to your Heat and your Bucks, Kyle. Bucks favored -310 in this one. Rematch of last year's debacle that the Bucks took at the hands of the Heat in the second round. Seems like a lot of people are saying that the Bucks get it done this year, and I think I agree with them, just because I think the addition of Drew Holiday is just so huge, and the way they've dabbled in switching more right on defense in the regular season, I think is going to really help them in this series, especially with how the Heat play with those handoffs from Bam and the shooters. So I see the Bucks. I actually might pick the Bucks in 5 in this one. Honestly, I think they just take care of business after what happened last year.
Last year has nothing to do with it. Honestly, it's a completely different team.
Right. That's why I'm picking the Bucks this time.
You said after what happened last year.
Oh, I just kind of meant the mentality of the Bucks, right? And especially Giannis and the players that have been there before. I think they're embarrassed by that loss, and I think that they're going to avenge it this year.
Yeah, I'll probably pick them too, but it really is.
Wow, I'm shocked.
Well, they've been doing like a lot more. I mean, we saw it all year, but we saw it especially a lot down the stretch, like late game, like dribble handoffs with like Giannis to Middleton, and kind of letting Middleton be the main guy at the end of games, which is what we know they needed to do last year because Giannis can only score one way essentially.
Yeah.
But it also comes down to, is this finally the year that the rotations get tight in Milwaukee? Because if not, then I could see the series going deep.
I mean,
if they're going to
assholes are getting tight, so
if they're going to tighten the rotations, then yeah, I think it's probably a 5-game, maybe 6-game series. But Drew's just been Drew. Everything that I said he was going to, should bring to the team when that trade happened.
Mm-hmm.
He's been all of that, maybe even more. So, and Miami's dealt with so many health issues this year. You don't have Tyler Hero being the player that he was last year either. Like, he was honestly one of the key factors to them winning against the Bucks last year with his scoring. He's not, he hasn't shown that again this year for some reason. So, but then again, you know, you can never count out Jimmy. He's got that insane mentality that he's never out of it. So it's gonna be an interesting one, definitely. I don't know why you didn't have that one first.
Well, I already gave the whole plane scenario. So
Sam's order is atrocious, but I think I'm particularly excited for this matchup as well. And I'm feeling like we're having too much agreement on the podcast so far, but I was planning on taking the Bucks, and yeah, if it's a close game and Giannis is playing less than 40 minutes, that's a problem. But that's what happened last year, and that's one of the reasons I lost. So we'll see what happens with that. I think that'll be a big key, and was really inexplicable last year. So hopefully Coach Bud has gotten his act together. And yeah, excited to see that team in the playoffs.
I think too, it's like, we'll see about the rotations thing, but I think Bud has fixed two things that we have had qualms about: the switching, like I talked about earlier, and on offense, running more with ball handlers, like, and adding Drew basically allowed them to do this, right? Running the offense through Drew and Chris more instead of having Giannis 30 feet from the rim trying to make decisions. So he's answered the bell into the areas that I wanted them to, which is why I think they'll be more improved in this year's playoffs.
Yeah, you know, thinking about it, obviously Bledsoe was much worse this year than he was last year. And maybe not much worse. He was worse this year, but just the replacement, right? What Drew brings is just another intangible that they didn't have last year. And you're replacing, you know, a guard that was ass with, you know, I think I said before the season when the trade happened, a top 5, you know, defensive guard in the league in Drew. And then you have Dante playing starters minutes, and he sneakily might be a top 15 defender in the league too. Right? Would you agree? I feel like no one ever talks about Dante DiVincenzo, but anytime you watch those games, he's making big defensive plays for the Bucks.
Yeah, I tested these. Yeah, he definitely is. Yeah, I mean, Drew is just like the way better version of Eric, right? A defensive guard that can score when you need him. But if he was way better, like, that's what Drew is. So yeah, I think that's gonna be the big difference.
It's like if Eric Bledsoe ate one of the stars in Mario, that's what Drew Holiday is.
That's honestly the perfect explanation.
I also thought it was funny that a couple of years ago, the Celtics and the Bucks had that beef, and Scary Terry Rozier called Eric Bledsoe Drew Bledsoe, former Patriots quarterback, and then they replaced Eric Bledsoe with someone named Drew. So smart move.
They're playing chess.
Spelled differently.
Yeah, spelled differently.
But the intention was there, clearly.
Yeah.
That's why they threw in an extra first-round pick. All right, next let's go over the Clippers Mavs rematch of last year with the iconic Luka shot. I expect the Clippers to win this easily. It's just, I really wish there's any second fiddle to Luka besides Kristaps, and I would feel more excited for him in the playoffs. But I mean, the man was averaging like almost a 30-point triple-double in last year's series, and still they couldn't get the win. So I just look forward to him having more help in future years, so he can at least compete in a series like this, you know?
I don't know why we didn't talk about the series last. What are your rankings? This is one of like the most clear-cut games. I get it, maybe.
I went by basically the odds in FanDuel, like what were the closest odds, right? So those first 3 were the closest, and then the Celtics will be last.
As they should be. But yeah, there's just, you know, there's not enough support around Luka. One man can only do so much, and it's not like he's LeBron where he's really affecting the game on both ends of the floor. It's really just a main factor on one side, and then you got Paul George looking like his old self, not his old self meaning Pandemic P. I mean, his old self back, when he was all-star levels, kind of. So,
Yeah.
But what more do you need besides Paul George and Kawhi? So,
Yeah.
against this team.
Seth, thoughts?
Yeah, I just think are the Mavs really any better than they were last year? I don't think really on paper or anything we've seen this season has led us to believe they're significantly better. And last year, they was it just the one game that they won Faluka's buzzer beater is a 5-game series last year.
No, it was a 6-game series.
Yeah, that's right. They ran away with one of them, I think.
I think KP went off in one game, and then he had his classic knee injury or whatever later on.
Right. So I'm kind of expecting the same thing. Like maybe Luka can just win one game by himself, and maybe they'll sneak out one other one. But I'd probably take Clippers in 5.
Same here. We are agreeing too much. I mean, the first round, though, what are you really gonna do? All right, last but certainly least as well. Although we will hit the 1/8, but we're not sure what the matchup is, but we'll talk about that. But first, we must talk about the heaviest underdog so far of any of the playoff series, the Boston Celtics of the greater Boston area, playing the Brooklyn Nets. And just not the year for your Celtics, Seth. Jaylen Brown goes down. Probably wouldn't have a shot this series otherwise. You get the worst matchup you could possibly have in the first round. So, you get him next year.
Yep. Next question.
Tears streaming down his eyes.
Yeah, I mean, we have no chance in the series. It's probably going to be Nets in 4, but you can bet your ass that if it's like within 5 points at halftime in game 1, I'll talk myself into it. If we somehow manage to get game 1,
you guys can be like the new Magic.
Tatum can win a couple games on his own.
Yeah.
See, the problem
Harden has one of his inefficient nights. Like, I don't say it might be possible.
The problem is Tatum can average 50 points a game this series, and they're still going to lose in 4 games.
Yeah, because those 3 will average 60 at least. So, yeah, I had down Nets in 5, and I'm not really sure why I thought that the Celtics would win a game. It should be
very generous.
Maybe, but I think it's funny you mentioned Harden being inefficient in one of the post games at the end of the year, one of the last, I think it was like 2 games. One of the reporters asked him, like, you don't seem to be taking as many shots. Is there, something going on? And he's like, man, I take all the shots in the game and you guys bitch at me and complain. And then when I, take a step back and just be a main distributor and just do whatever I can to help my team out, then you say I'm not doing enough. What the hell's the point? Which is like so true. He doesn't have to be a main scorer anymore.
Right.
People are going to be like, oh, here's Harden. That's exactly what's going to happen too. Guaranteed, as we get deep in these playoffs, they're going to, Harden might average like 16 points a game in a series or something. They're going to be like, oh, you're taking a step back and just letting others, win the game for you. And it's like, it's going to aggravate the living hell out of me, because I don't know, such a big factor in that game. I
don't know why would we be mad at that. That's the part that's impressed me most of part of the season, is his ability to fit.
It's the part that most people should be impressed about this season.
We know he's an elite passer, obviously, right? So his ability to just kind of run point guard for that team and step in where needed has been impressive. I did see that quote and I was like, okay, he maybe didn't have to lash out like that, but I would be kind of pissed. I think it'd just be hard to be any superstar with the media and just like you ask these questions that sometimes contradict each other day in and day out. But I think, like we said before the season started, right? Harden has had his playoff miscues numerous, and he's always been worse in the playoffs. This is the perfect situation for him to finally succeed in the playoffs, right? Where he doesn't have to be that person to take all the shots and take the last shot in the game. So if there's a year and a team to do it on, it'll be this one for him for sure.
I can't wait to get James Harden tattoo when they win the finals.
Why don't you have one already? What are you waiting for? All right, let's talk about
James Harden beard above my knee, I think.
Tasteful, nice and small, tasteful. Let's finish off with the 1 versus 8. We don't know exactly who the 8 is, although has that game gone final?
Warriors. God, I keep saying that. Wizards, they won.
Okay, so let's talk about that first. I was gonna say whichever team wins that anyway. I'm gonna pick a sweep for the Sixers, so it doesn't really matter to me. But the Wizards will be the more entertaining one, I think. So we'll have the 1 seed Philly versus the 8 seed Wizards. Listen, it's gonna be fun to watch Russ and Beal in the playoffs at the very least, right? For the 4 games that they get beaten in.
If Beal's fully healthy.
Yeah, that's the bummer, isn't it? How did he look today?
I didn't watch today.
Yeah, me either.
He's looked pretty good. There was one he had a little like knee collision, and then we were a little worried for a second, but I think it was just like a hurt initially, and he was fine afterwards. So, and obviously, like it's kind of been a blowout, so they haven't really needed him as much. But
yeah, he's definitely been laboring, it seems, last couple of games.
Yeah, but I'm excited to see what it'll be like. I mean, obviously the Sixers have the better team, the more talent, they'll be heavily favored, but this Wizards team has been really hot this last third of the season or so, and I could definitely see them taking a game or two. Probably
It's funny. I feel like in the West, we're like, who's going to make the conference finals? Who the fuck knows? And in the East, there's such a collision course with how it's set up between the Nets and Philly, right? Because Philly gets the Wizards, easy win. Then they get the winner of the Hawks and the Knicks, certainly the lesser of the opponents left. And then the Nets play the Bucks. I would favor the Nets in that as well. And so we're kind of just on this collision course, I feel like, for the Nets and the Sixers to play in the East. And I would be kind of mildly surprised if that didn't end up being the case,
Yeah.
I'm more worried about the Nets second round matchup than I would be about them playing Philly in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Really? You think Milwaukee's a worse matchup for them?
Yeah.
Because they can kind of match them offensively, and they have Drew and Giannis and all them to throw at.
They have way much more offensive firepower, I feel like, that can come from many different places, whereas Philly, it's concentrated to basically Embiid, maybe Tobias, and then you got to hope, Seth is on his game. Otherwise, what do you got?
Seth, you on your game?
I'm always on my game.
That's interesting. I don't know if I've heard that before, but I think I kind of agree with you. I mean, I don't know. If I was going to make a prediction, I think the Nets make the finals and lose this first year.
Lose to who?
The Lakers or the Clippers would be my bet.
No.
So if you were to pick the finals right now, what would it be?
Am I picking from my heart or picking based on logic?
Well, if you're even going to say that, then give me both.
I mean, Nets and Nuggets is my heart.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it probably is the Clippers. I'm just tired of seeing Kawhi in the finals. He's just so boring.
I really am.
I don't know why. Like I appreciate his greatness, but he's just such a boring player. He's very hard to root for.
The Clippers are definitely my least favorite of any of the good teams to watch. That's for sure.
But the Nets roll any of them, so.
Before the previous season, I predicted Clippers Sixers. And maybe I was just a year early.
Could be.
You may have been.
I'm going to take Lakers Nets, and I'll take the Lakers. I think we all knew what all of us were going to pick, so I don't know why we even went through the exercise.
I wasn't planning on it.
All right, let's talk quickly about the Jazz versus either the Warriors or Memphis. So that's the final play-in.
80% chance Warriors win that game based on statistics
80?
I saw. Yeah.
What statistics? You just looked at your own notebook and you just had written that down?
Kyle hasn't decided who's going to win. Eventually, he'll choose, and then that'll determine it.
No, some like NBA models that project percentages of winning.
I mean, I would pick the Warriors to win. And
right, yeah, I'm going to pick the Warriors to win that game too.
If they lost.
Right.
Who do you give either of these teams a chance against the Jazz? I think we would all give the Warriors
Memphis, not a chance. Yeah.
Right. I think we would all give the Warriors a better chance against the Jazz, right? I'm kind of in the zone of they'll probably win a few games. Maybe it's a long series, but I think the Jazz will win that. Do you guys agree with that assessment?
Yeah, probably. See, the one thing I'm worried about with the Jazz is I'm pretty sure they're the one team that has the highest fan capacity. So they're gonna have like basically home court advantage. They're gonna have like 75% capacity, which is like the first time all season. And to have that behind you, you know, in the biggest time of the year, you know, that's gonna be tough to overcome for any team, especially when you're playing the number one team in the league.
Tough place to play
record-wise
too. And the one qualm I have with the Jazz is Donovan Mitchell never played before the playoffs. Were they just saving him? Is he going to be 100%? We just haven't seen him, you know?
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I definitely give the Warriors have a chance that series.
You have Steph, you always have
right.
a chance, right? You know?
The thing is, Kerr is not smart enough to start the game with Draymond at 5. It gives him the best chance at winning anything. Looney's not going to be able to do anything in that game, but he's going to start him and he's going to end up playing 20-something minutes.
Well, I think the thing we underrate is like that's their best lineup, but having Draymond play 46 minutes of center is not sustainable.
Could be.
Right?
Yeah, I'm not saying that Looney shouldn't ever see the floor, but I don't think that you should start out at a bigger disadvantage for the first 6 minutes of a game when you don't have to.
That's interesting because I'd rather start with Looney and close with Draymond, which is I feel like what they'll do.
Kyle had his way
and close.
If Kyle had his way, he'd have 7 players on each team who are playing, and everyone else is wearing a blindfold on the end of the bench. Can't even look at the court.
Gobert wouldn't even see the court if Kyle was coaching. So, all right. Well, I think we took our pulse, and we all were in too much of agreement. But this is gonna be a fun first round. I'm excited for it. I think especially in the West, it's a different 1-8, 2-7 than we're used to, right? All the series I expect to be close in the West at least, which will be exciting. We wanted to finish up with a little fun thing that Seth thought of. Seth, you want to tell our listeners what the conceit was?
Sure. So over the course of the season, and since we've been doing this podcast, longtime listeners may start picking up on certain players that each of us particularly like. I think Kyle has maybe an extended list of Stogie boys that he's grown affection for over the years. I think my list, it was actually kind of hard to come up with because I think compared to the two of you, compared to the two of you, I'm more of like a fan of a team, and you guys lean more towards being fans of certain players.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to just like list all the Celtics players, so I limited myself to one Celtic. But
wow,
I would have allowed 2.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'll change it. But the idea was we could just kind of talk through our list, and maybe we'll guess each other's lists to make it interesting, and then maybe we just like follow how they do in this year's playoffs and make it like a little friendly competition. Although we're not like intentionally picking the players that we think are going to do the best. It's just meant to be like, let's see how our kind of favorite players that we root for, how well they do stacked up against each other.
Okay, so we'll start with my list. You guys can guess it. I will warn you that what I did was I had a starting 5, 2 guards, 2 forwards, and a center. That's just what I did. And
I did the same.
I left off my 3 favorite players, as we know, are LeBron, Steph, and Jokic. But I left them off because
why?
Everyone loves them and they're really, really good. I was more going for players that I value more than most people do, you know, that I think are sneaky good or that I love for no reason, really. So that's just what I did. So I'm warning you for your guesses.
Okay, so no LeBron and no Steph and no Jokic. So that means he has you dirty boy, you have.
So I have since taken Sabonis off because we said playoff teams and he just lost. Okay. But his
center's Gobert. Let's be honest.
No, I don't like Gobert. I just can't hear you drag his name through the mud in such a way.
He's the reason the NBA shut down. He shut down the entire world, essentially. It all started with him. And I'll never forget that. His center has to be Bam then?
No,
No, he would leave.
my
Bam for
center is
you.
someone we just talked about, actually.
Just talked about. Who were we talking about just now?
We just talked about him. Literally last thing we talked about.
What did we just talk about?
It's not Kevon Looney. So who could it be?
Draymond.
Draymond, yeah. I slotted him at center that once I lost a bonus. So
Yeah. All right, so he's got
He's a
Draymond in
forward.
there.
You wouldn't start him at center. He's a forward.
well, he's not gonna start at center, but this is my closing lineup.
Who else
Chris
are
Paul.
Sam's favorite players?
No, my other forward, I'll give you a hint. I've talked about him as like one of my top 5 players to watch before. I like players that can't shoot.
For some reason, I, wanna,
So far, this is a terrible segment. What'd you
Ben
say?
Simmons.
Yeah,
No,
Ben
this is
Simmons,
fun.
correct.
I was gonna say Dario Saric, but I knew that wasn't it.
I do kind of sneaky like Dario, not gonna lie.
What about favorite players to watch?
Well, you guys already know one of my other guards, right? Jamal Murray. I mentioned him earlier because I asked if I could use him for the Nuggets. You said yes, even though he's out. So, I love Jamal. What he did in the bubble, I fell in love with him, especially when he grew his hair out and his beard.
Can I guess another one?
Yeah.
Jonathan Morant.
See, I didn't put Jonathan on there because I feel like I only like him because he's on my fantasy team.
Okay.
He wasn't I only put pre-fantasy team guys in there, so I wasn't swayed. I'm not sure you're going to guess the final two. The other forward, he is on my fantasy team, but I liked him before that. And he's on the Hornets.
Hornets didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, so I guess I should take him off, but I love him so much.
You're really making this tough by not following the rules.
Well, I don't have any other non-playoff players. I didn't know that was a rule.
Miles Bridges.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
switching for Mikal.
I just feel like he's underrated. He's literally I just might just do that. He literally actually I'll switch him out for either Mikal or Thibault because I love both of them. But I would just like to mention Miles is basically shooting 50, 40, 90.
Yeah.
And really stepped
Miles
into
is
a scoring role when Hayward was out.
extremely good, and
Yeah.
Borrego sucks and doesn't play him enough.
Every coach sucks, obviously.
Like
All right,
most
my
coaches
last
in the
one.
NBA.
My last one, I don't know if
Dumbasses.
I really talked to you guys that much
Are
about
we at
it.
your? Are we left with your shooting guard then?
Yeah, I once saw him at a bar in Chicago. Sneaky short.
Bar in Chicago.
Yeah, I was too scared to go up to him though. He kind of had a posse around him, you know.
Wow.
You're never gonna get it.
Sure.
He plays for the Mavericks.
I mean, Jose Juan Borrego doesn't play for the Mavericks anymore.
That's your boy. You're just guessing
That's so
Stogie
true.
boys. He starts off with Bam and Jose Juan.
You're gonna tell me you saw
Josh
Jalen
Richardson?
Brunson?
Yeah, Jalen Brunson, correct.
Oh wow.
What bar?
He's so
And how
fucking
did you
good.
not say anything?
He had a posse.
So?
So that's my starting lineup. I got Jalen at the point guard, Jamal at the 2, Miles at the 3, Draymond, and I guess Thibault or Mikal, whichever one I'm feeling that day, rounding out my forwards.
Nice. I feel like we should be able to guess Kyle's fairly quickly. I feel like he has a lot, but we know who they are.
Okay,
He's just 5.
he's gonna slot Jokic and Bam both in, I think. Don't you think? Did you?
I opted
Well,
not to go with Bam because I went essentially all NBA
Okay.
reason. What's it called?
So you got Jokic
structure.
at your
So
center.
Harden and Jokic.
Yes.
Is LeBron in there or no?
No.
Okay.
Robert Covington.
Obviously.
Dennis Schroeder.
Obviously.
Yeah.
We just have
So
one
that's
more
why
left.
small forward, or I guess a forward, but I'll give you that hint, small forward.
Small forward. How could we not get this? It's gonna be so obvious once we
Jimmy.
know, isn't it?
Jimmy.
Jimmy.
You guys killed it.
I mean,
We know you well.
I have the Stogie boys ingrained in your memories too.
all right. So your lineup was Dennis,
Harden, Dennis, Jimmy, Bobby Covington, and Jokic.
It's gonna be tough if he has a Nets player. We're not gonna have one. That's definitely gonna undo us in the playoffs. All right, Seth. Let's see. We'd definitely
He has
Marcus
Tatum.
Smart.
Wow.
Smart and Tatum if you let him have 2 from the Celtics.
Smart is correct.
The fact that he leaves off Tatum.
Well, that
Snub of
was
the year.
also one of those things like, does he just automatically get on because he's the best player on my favorite team? Or
Is he not your
yes.
favorite player from your favorite team?
I mean, you tell us.
No,
Who's-
Tatum's not on.
Well, okay.
Clay
this
Thompson,
mark-
obviously.
Yeah, Clay.
Clay. Yep.
Anthony Davis. He's always high on Anthony Davis. No, he just
No.
likes him because he fits. He gets value on him in drafts or whatever. All right.
No, I think he's really good, but I wouldn't have I couldn't stomach putting a Lakers player on my
Chris
favorite
Paul's
players
got to
list.
be one, right?
I thought about putting Chris Paul, but I decided to go with a different all NBA level point guard because I
Damian
like him
Lillard.
slightly more. Yeah.
Dame. Okay, yeah. So far we have Dame, Marcus, and that's it. And Clay.
Clay. Yeah.
So you have those three, and then did you go with the positions or is it positionless?
It's positionless.
Okay.
That's fine.
What he's gonna do? 5 guards? What the fuck is this? Who else does he even like?
I'll give you a hint. I have one more Celtics player, but it's not Tatum.
Don't you dare tell me it's Kemba.
No.
No,
It's
Robert
Jalen. I
Williams?
love Kemba.
Time Lord?
No, it's Jalen.
Jalen. Okay. So you
Right,
like Jalen
but
better
this-
than Jason?
All the social justice stuff,
Yeah.
That makes
you
sense.
know,
Off the court,
his beard. It's like,
his beard is
you gotta
sexy as
love
fuck.
Jalen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is immaculate.
Okay.
So we're down to one left.
Yeah.
Positionless though.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be a big man.
So this one, how can I give you a clue? I've never met him, but I feel like I have.
Carmelo Anthony,
Correct.
because he peed in his urinal. I mean, really, you don't even need to beat someone at that point if you peed in their urinal.
Right. We have a bond that words couldn't even describe.
Okay, so give me your lineup again.
So I've got at guard, Marcus Smart and Klay Thompson. And
Dame
Damian
at small
Lillard.
forward.
Yeah, Damon Small.
I have 3 guards and 2 forwards.
Okay,
So Marcus, Clay, and Dame, and then Melo and Jalen.
put
in the
Mel
front
at the
court.
5. You can survive.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. Well, we'll see what happens.
So
I mean, I think Kyle
Yeah.
has the upper hand because he has a Nets player. None of us have a Lakers player.
You guys
Yeah,
also
I
don't
mean-
have Jokic.
no one on my team is making it past the first round. So
I'll make sure to do Tybal instead of Mikal Bridges so I have a chance of the Sixers making.
I thought you already have Ben Simmons.
Oh, yeah. So I might as well take Mikal to even my
Yeah.
odds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was successful. We'll check back in with the listeners next time to see how all our boys are doing.
So what are we doing? Are we just like
We're not doing
essentially-
anything. This is just,
Well-
it's all in your head.
Okay.
We could do something if you want.
Well, we're going to update the listeners on who makes it from our teams, right? So just keep your list in mind.
All right. So I have 3 players that are two of my 5 are almost guaranteed to make the finals.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't pick this team based on playoff success. So
No. Yeah.
I didn't either. It's just I like good players. What can I say? Dennis
I think the
Schroeder.
main point was that we could get our boys down so the listeners know,
Yeah.
And now we can follow them throughout their careers. And our listeners will always, they're going to tweet at us and be like, oh, your Squammy boy did this today because we get so many tweets.
Maybe Melo will invite me to his, Hall of
Palace.
Fame speech now.
Maybe. I thought you already were going to invite.
I'll be introducing him actually.
All right. Well, that was a pleasure. I'm excited for these playoffs to start, the real playoffs. And that Lakers Warriors game was a nice appetizer.
And by the way, for the listeners, in 15 seconds, Washington will officially have won the game. So
Thank God our listeners heard that.
Yep.
So make sure to
5
listen to this
seconds
right when
now.
it drops, people. When you're listening to it, it better be Friday.
Should I just get this?
game over. Yeah.
This is an auditory
Is that
It's
what
an
I
outline. It's an outline of James Harden's hair. So you can see like his hairline and a little bit of the mohawk and then
And his
his
beard.
beard.
That's what I used for my fantasy profile picture when my team name was Fear the Beard and I had Harden. So
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
I hated every second of it though. I thought it would be nice because then I could start rooting for Harden when I watched, but I still wasn't rooting for him and I hated it. So I'm
You
never
have
doing
him
that
in
again.
fantasy?
I
Yeah,
did back in the
right.
day. Yeah.
It sounds like third place team is splitting, or third and fourth are splitting payouts. So I'll get that out tonight.
Do you think the listeners care about this?
They should. You know, they essentially
They-
live our lives. This is a step in our shoes.
All right, Kyle, just send the listeners off now that we have you.
We finally did it. We've made it. It's the playoffs. And my time is here. James Harden's going to win it all. We'll talk.
Shock your coworkers by telling them how the play-in works.